Salonistas, welcome to this week's Salon de la Vie. I'm very excited. I've come down to film it specially to Cornwall again because this is, of course, a salon celebrating Daphne du Maurier, and this is her favourite place. You can see a slightly blustery sea behind me, treetops in the wind there, the sea and the estuary, all making us think, of course, of why she ran to Cornwall and practically never left it again, found herself here, fell in love with it, and I think looking up behind me on this blustery spring day, you can see why. So I'm going to start us off by just singing you what was on Desert Island Discs, her favourite song. Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, she's there watching for me. And if I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing. It's far beyond a star, it's near beyond the moon. I know beyond a doubt my heart will lead me there soon. We'll meet beyond the shore, we'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again we'll go sailing. My lovely camera partner in life and special guest are looking very pleased. It took me about 15 takes to get that first song right, which you wouldn't believe. I know it was still a little bit shoddy, but yes, I find that one tricky for some reason. It's probably why I was looking down a lot. But anyway, I've shared it with you. I have not shared it with you in French, which is how Daphne would have liked it. But clearly, I was only barely able to do it like that, and I certainly wasn't clever enough to do it in another language. However, in honour of the fact that she would have liked it in the original French and that she wrote Frenchman's Creek, I am drinking for you today. That sounds weird, like it's a party trick. I'm encouraging you to drink with me today a French martini. So, chin chin and pip pip and push hearts. So this is vodka, chambois, any kind of berry liqueur, and pineapple juice. I drank it for my whole first season in Edinburgh, so it's kind of weirdly burnt into my memory of doing things I'm nervous of, so it seemed to go with that song quite well. Right. Hope that you have everything you need at home. Let me talk to you about Daphne du Maurier and why I love her and why I want to celebrate her in this salon. So she's one of the most diverse writers' voices I think I've ever come across. So you know, if you read like all of Jane Austen, you're going to love them, they're great, but you're also going to go back after a few years and be like, which one was Persuasion and which one was Censor? What with the what now? Where there is a bleed, there is a style. And Daphne du Maurier is absolutely the opposite to that. She has this absolutely, I can even now, I've read every single one of her books, and I could tell you the sort of blow by blow, roughly the account, and the feel and the timbre of every one of them, because she sort of writes in character, and she writes as a totally different character every book. And I think that's partly because she has a very theatrical family in her background, which we'll chat about in a minute, but she certainly enters a character and plays it and plays out these narratives really clearly, as well, of course, just she's a marvellous writer, but that's one of the things I really love about her work. And one of the things I think she does really fabulously is she writes really kick-ass heroines, which obviously I love, but she also writes absolutely brilliantly in a male narrator, like a first-person narrator, and she was practicing that, I guess, all of her childhood. She used to pretend to be a boy called Eric, or she lived as Eric for a lot of her childhood, swashbuckling and things like that, and living out kind of a fantasy life. So I think when she becomes men, when she's doing things like House on the Strand, she, and My Cousin Rachel, which is just brilliant, she really kind of embodies these guys in this way that is not even particularly sympathetic, but utterly convincing, really brilliant. So I would encourage you to read everything by her, but certainly to pick up on things like the first novel she did, The Loving Spirit, where you can see how massively influenced she is by the Brontes and her love of Emily Bronte in particular. And I mentioned my cousin Rachel. I'm just up here this way. If you go follow the estuary this way, you get to Frenchman's Creek, which is an interesting one as well, because it's the kind of novel like that has her written off as a romantic novelist. I think she's been kind of lost to the canon in many ways, only rediscovered more recently, because people didn't know what she was doing. And so men particularly sort of were like, I don't really get this. Let's say it's romantic fiction, which we don't rate very highly. But actually, none of her books are really romances. They all end in complete catastrophe and tragedy. Rebecca doesn't have a romantic ending. You know, Frenchman's Creek doesn't have a romantic... God, there's disaster and sadness and confusion throughout her work, which, of course, you can see in her short stories like The Birds and the other and things that famously get made into these big kind of Don't Look Now, these big films that have terrified us for generations. My mum watched Don't Look Now and had to have my dad take her to the loo every night for a week. Couldn't go up on her own and go anywhere in the dark, so I read it and literally had to hide under a table for about a day, and I thought, I'm not going to watch that as well. So anyway, and yeah, definitely, perhaps don't Netflix Rebecca, but definitely watch the Hitchcock Rebecca. It is fabulous, and read it. So that's a bit of a whistle stop of her. I'm going to do something, it's a bit last minute, but I've got a special guest with me who you'll know from our work, who's lovely. And many years ago, we did the Foy Festival together, which was a kind of du Maurier loving of epic proportions that took place in the place that she loved in Foy. She came to Foy when she was about 19 and just fell in love with it and just never left. Apart from to do wonderful world travel-y rich person things, but she made it her home forever and ever. And they ran a festival there in her honour. Just to mention as well, she was one of those people that came to Cornwall, discovered she loved it, and wrote fantastic actually non-fiction books about it. But then also was a bit like, we love it, everyone here, and no one else come now, everyone else stay away, it's mine now, I've discovered I love it, I'm an outsider, now you all can't come in. So there was a bit of that, there's still quite a lot of that, but anyway, she was one of those. But they did have this wonderful festival, and we used to do all sorts of daft things there, and one of them was a cabaret where we made a little scene out of a book called The Parasites. The Parasites shows Daphne's theatrical background. Her dad was a very, very famous actor. He was the first actor to play Hook. He was big mates with J.M. Barrie. Some of her cousins were inspiration for The Lost Boys. Her sister plays, I think, the first or second ever Wendy. So she's very bedded into this very theatrical world. But I think that it didn't leave her terribly overly impressed necessarily with the quality of humans possibly in the world that she observed in her father's world. I don't know, but she writes a lot of her stuff is quite cutting, but she wrote some quite cutting, marvellous things, and The Parasites is one of her lesser known and I think really most marvellous novels, so I would really recommend reading that. I'm going to ask the lovely Shaz Andrew to come and join me to read the little scene that we stuck in a cabaret, didn't we? We did, for the unsuspecting members of the Foy Festival many years ago. So in The Parasites, it's about a theatrical family of siblings and their very difficult and quasi-inappropriate relationship with each other. The two closest are Niall and Maria. Maria, a very successful actor. Niall, a bit of a lost posh boy. They're all children of a famous actor again. So it does have a lot. You can't help reading it going, ooh, what did Daphne mean by this? And what is she telling us about her life? Probably not that much. But anyway, so we're going to read a scene here where Maria has had her baby, much to the surprise and shock of everyone, including herself, and she's on a day trip out with her brother, Niall. And this is a little conversation that we liked that they had in the car with the baby with them. They're trying to have a nice day out, baby crying. Neither of them really set up for this. I know why mothers leave their babies to be adopted in shops. They can't stand the strain.
Oh, couldn't we leave Caroline in a shop? I don't believe Charles would really mind. It would only be his pride. I think if no one come to their senses would be mad about Caroline at this stage. Years later, perhaps, when she's a debutante.
I wish to God she was a debutante now. Niall?
What?
I've suddenly thought of something. Let's shop at the Woolworths and buy a comforter.
What is a comforter?
You know, one of those awful rubber things that common babies have stuck in their mouths.
Oh, do they make them nowadays?
I don't know. We can try. She got out of the car, ran in and ran back with a comforter. 6pence. And the girl said her little sister had one at home.
Where does she live?
Who?
The little sister. We might take Caroline and the mother could look after them both.
Don't be silly. Now watch. You'd scarcely credit it, would you?
It's rather frightful. Like plugging someone with cocaine. What if it has a terrible effect on Caroline in afterlife?
I don't care. As long as it keeps her quiet now.
How easy it would be if every time one felt one was on the edge, they could just go to Woolworths and buy a comforter. There must be something psychological about it. I think I shall get one myself. It's probably what I've wanted all my life.
The lovely Chaz Andrew, thank you very much. She's happened to be here doing something else and I was like, oh, yoink, come and do this. One of the night you can probably hear her now climbing over the... I wish we could turn the camera. I wish we were clever enough to do that. She's done a fantastic, very slow-mo ninja roll across the bed to get out past the lights and is now heading out the door. So when we were in Foy, we met the most amazing woman who owns a bookshop there. She's called Anne, and she is sort of like how people have protégés on musical instruments, but they're completely self-taught. She's like that as an academic about Daphne du Maurier. And she actually found 3 stories that people sort of knew probably existed but had never been able to find and started to think perhaps didn't exist, and that are now in compilations of short stories. And I think that the ones that stick out for me are His Letters Grew Colder. So we have Anne to thank for finding that, which is so brilliant. If you can find that, it's an amazing read. It's literally a set of letters from a chap to a woman who he's wooing, seducing, and then basically getting bored of. And it is, oh God, it goes through you like toxic masculinity knife through oppressed women. Anyway, it's really, really good. And then there's a story in there called The Doll. Again, a must read. It's one of her very earliest short stories. Again, thank you, Anne, for finding that. And it talks about a woman who doesn't need the male narrator. One of the first times she uses the male narrator's voice, because she has a life-size man doll puppet, and it gets really weirdly explicit. Bear in mind this is written in the sort of 30s, really early. Got rejected quite a bit, but now it's a great read. Funnily enough, publishers didn't pick it up straight away at the time. So that made me think of our next song. I thought I'd play it in homage to, obviously, to Daphne, but also because so many of her stories are about like how disastrously wrong flesh and blood relationships can be, and how it might well be easier to lock all those feelings away with a nice safe doll. But also this is a homage to Anne of Anne's Bookshops in Foy. Blimmin' good work, magical. Coin-operated boy, sitting on a shelf. He is just a toy, but I turn him on and he comes to life. Automatic joy, that is why I want a coin-operated boy. Made of plastic and elastic, he is rugged and long-lasting. Who could ever ask for more? Love without complications galore. Many shapes and weights to choose from. I will never leave my bedroom. I will never cry at night again. Wrap my arms around him and pretend. Coin-operated boy, all the other real ones that I destroy cannot hold a candle to my new boy, and I'll never be alone, and I'll never let him go. No, I'll never be alone, and I'll never let him go, and I'll never be alone. not with my coin-operated boy. This bridge was written to make you feel smitten, oh, with my sad picture of girl getting bitter. Oh, will you extract me from my plastic fantasy? I didn't think so, but I'm still convincible. Will you persist even after I kiss you goodbye? For the last time, will you keep on trying to prove it? I'm dying to lose it. I'm losing my confidence. I want you. I want her. I need her. Coin-operated boy. And if I had a star to wish on for my life, I can't imagine any flesh or blood could be his match. I can't even take him in the bath. Coin-operated boy, he may not be real experienced with girls, but I know he feels like a boy should feel. Isn't that the point? That is why I want a coin-operated boy with his pretty coin-operated voice, telling me he loves me, that he's thinking of me, straight and to the point. That is why I want a coin operator. Thank you very much. So I'm going to finish off with a reading that goes back to, it's a short story of Daphne du Maurier's. I think it's very hard to pick, as you can tell. I love everything she does. We actually have a phrase in Scary Little Girls whenever we're a bit stuck, which is, what would Daphne do? We even had badges made with it on. But this, I think, might be my favourite short story, and it goes back again to her being a theatrical child and a child of the theatre, and I think it's rather jolly. So I'm going to read you it, and then finish with a song. So I'm going to say my goodbyes now, just to shake it up a little bit. Even though we're technically in time about halfway through, I'll say my thank yous to all my team. Thank you so much to you all for watching, let's have a little drink before I hit you with the last story and last song. And I'm going to encourage you again one more time to check out the fantastic Spotify playlist that DJ Stegosaurus has made that goes with these, because they're just fantastic, and they've got some really lovely hidden gems in them. I'm hoping that he's joining me on the switchboard in a minute, on the messages, to answer a few questions and to tell us why he's picked some of those songs, because they've got some lovely stories behind them. Right, I'm going to read you now The Supreme Artist by Daphne du Maurier. He came away from the stage after the final curtain and went along to his dressing room, humming a tune to himself, thinking of nothing. The girl followed close behind, patting a lock of hair that had fallen over her face. "You smudged your eye black when you cried this afternoon," she told him. "It came off in streaks down the side of my neck. I suppose you must cry." "I don't know. I never thought of it before. I'll try something else tonight. We might alter the whole of the last act. What if I wore a beard? Oh, yes, I'm sure one could give an entirely different performance in a beard." He turned in his looking glass and squinted sideways at his profile. "Oh, I should hate you in a beard," she said, feeling his chin. "It would make you look all heavy and middle-aged. Darling, promise me you'll never wear one." He picked up a hand mirror and viewed himself from another angle. "I'm not so sure. Monckton, what about a beard for the last act?" The man coughed behind his hand politely. "Well, sir, it's hardly for me to say, but I scarcely think it'd be suitable for the type of part, sir." "Oh, perhaps you're right. Why is it I'm never allowed to do what I like? Oi, where are you going?" She turned to him from the door. "Upstairs to change. Have you got the car?" "Yes, want throwing out anywhere?" "Take me back to the flat like an angel. Unless you've got millions of people to see, I can easily find a bus." "Don't be a mug, of course I'll take you anywhere. Buck up and get your things on. Monckton, there's no one waiting, is there? Excuse me, sir, but I believe there is a lady wishes to see you. Here's her card. I said you generally like to get away quickly on matinee days, and she seemed disappointed. Oh, give me the card. Mrs. John Pierce conveys nothing to me. What's she like, Monckton? Well, sir, it's rather difficult to describe. A middle-aged lady, I should say, white hair, tall, dressed in country clothes, a pleasant speaking voice. Oh, Lord. Pour me out a drink and show her in. He lit a cigarette and tried to remember the second bar of a tune that was haunting him. Why are you so mean to me? Why are you... He had forgotten all about the woman until the door suddenly closed and she was standing there before him. She laughed at him, holding out her hands. Why, you haven't changed at all, have you? He saw someone with a mass of thick white hair under an ugly hat, someone with a bronzed, rather weather-beaten face. Her eyes were blue, and she was nice when she smiled. But her clothes were all wrong, her ankles thick. She obviously did not care about these things. He started back in surprise, pretending to be overwhelmed with joy and astonishment. Of course, he had no idea who she really was. My dear, he began, but this is too marvellous. Why on earth didn't you tell me you were out front? It seemed as though she could not move away from the doorway, but must stand there watching him, feeling his eyes with hers, uncertain of the truth of his words. Well, I didn't think you'd recognise me. I was certain you wouldn't have the remotest idea who I was. What is it? Nearly 30 years? But you're talking nonsense. Of course, I knew you the moment you walked into the room. He racked his brain for some memory, some light out of the past. Who on earth could she be? Mrs. John Pierce. She loosened the scarf round her throat and sat down on the edge of the sofa. Oh, this is the first time I've been brave enough to come round, she said. I wanted to. Oh, often. But something always prevented me. A feeling you wouldn't know me, wouldn't remember. I come and see all your plays, you know, and I'm still sentimental enough to cut your notices out and paste them into a book. She laughed, shaking her head, and he made a little noise in his throat to save the necessity of words. You see, I live in the country now, she said. It's quite an expedition to get to London, and when I do, about twice a year, I make a point of seeing you. I don't know what it is, but the years make no difference to you. To me, a tired, middle-aged woman in the stalls, you are still that boy I knew, funny, excited, rumpled hair. Oh, well, that's being a sentimentalist, isn't it? Can I have a cigarette? She reached for the box on the table. He wondered why she gave him no clue about her personality, why she didn't even bother to mention the names of people or places. Apparently they must have known each other absurdly well. Bronzed hair, bronzed face, white hair... Mrs. John Pierce. Let's see. He threw his question into the air. Let's see. How long ago is it really since I saw you last? She watched him with a grave expression. I said 30 years just now, but maybe it's a little less. Do you know, I've only got to relax and throw my mind back, and I can hear the sound of your cab starting and you driving away in it hot and furious, with me lying on the bed, imagining that nobody ever got over a broken heart. Oh, they'd been as intimate as that. Angry words, tears, and now he couldn't remember it at all. I must have behaved like a swine, he said angrily. I can't understand how we ever came to quarrel. You don't mean to think we parted because of a quarrel? Oh, we never had rows, you and I. You must remember that. No, of course not. I know we were the most wonderful of friends in every way. She sat for a minute and then considered the matter, her head on one side. That's where you're wrong. I think it's because we never struck up a proper friendship that the whole thing finished. I think we were too young to have any judgment, too young and too selfish. He agreed solemnly, watching her over the rim of his glass. So this had been a passionate affair. 30 years ago, he cast his mind back in vain. He had the uneasy feeling that he had behaved badly to this white-haired woman who sat before him. In a minute, though, he was acquitted. "I shall never regret it," she said. Not for 1 second. Never, never. Having been really, truly in love, well, it's the best thing in the world, isn't it? The only moment I have sometimes regretted was sending you away as I did. We might have gone on being happy." Then it had not been his fault after all. Ha! Presumably, he had gone from her broken-hearted. It was all rather touching. Why did he have such an appalling memory? He was ready to cry over his youthful tragedy. "Well, I nearly blew my brains out at the time," he said bitterly. "I suppose you never cared 1 moment for how it would affect me. I felt I had nothing to live for, nothing in life to hold on to." "Oh, well, I guessed it would be hard at first," she smiled, but look, you got over it." He was certain he'd taken months in getting over it. For all he knew, this woman had blasted his whole outlook 30 years ago. They'd obviously been passionately in love, and she'd given him the chock, breaking his heart. He'd forgotten her ugly hat and her tired, weather-beaten face. He began to imagine someone young, somebody slim. He pictured himself in all sorts of mad, impossible things. "How long the days were," he said dreamily. "That frock you wore, and your hair brushed away from your face." She frowned, puzzled by his words. "But we scarcely saw each other in the daytime." Nights, I meant. Long, long nights. Sometimes there was a moon making patterns on the floor. You used to put your hands over your eyes to hide yourself from the light." "Did I really?" "Yes, you know you did. And often we'd come back hungry. Neither was any money in our pockets. Perhaps only a half a ham sandwich. And you'd be cold. I'd give you my coat and you'd wrinkle your nose in contempt. Who wants to get warm that way? And I'd love you so much I wanted to strangle you." He stopped short, dazzled by his own imagination and a little hurt by the astonished expression on her face. "I've forgotten all about that," she told him. "I'm sure you always had plenty of money. And we never halved ham sandwiches. We nearly always ate with Mother." He glared at her, shocked and confused. His ideas were so much more romantic. She was spoiling everything. Why must she drag in her relations? "I have always hated your mother," he said coldly. "We never got on. I didn't like to tell you at the time." "But why didn't you say so? You know it would have made all the difference in the world." He brushed her statement aside. He would not talk about her mother. He saw himself young, miserable, very much in love. This was all that mattered. "I tried drinking at first," he said gloomily. "Oh, but it wasn't any good. I could never get your face out of my thoughts, never for a single instant, night and day. It was complete and utter hell." "What about your ambition? Surely that gave you some sort of interest. And then when success came to you..." "Ambition? Success? What were these compared to my love for you? Don't you understand that after you went away I was broken, I was done in? You took from me the only chance of happiness I've ever had, and I was young, I had ideals, I believed in you more than anything in the world. And then, for some reason that I shall never know, you drugged me." He blew his nose noisily and poured himself out another drink. She rose from the sofa and laid her hand on his shoulder. "I had no idea you felt that way. I thought I would be a drag on you." He refused to be comforted. He shook his head miserably. "You were the sweetest influence in my life, the one reason for existence." He glanced down at the wedding ring on her hand and was aware of his unreasoning jealousy. "Who is this fellow you're married to, anyway? This John Pierce, damn his eyes! So you couldn't even be faithful to one?" "I met him 18 months after you went away. John and I have been married 27 years. 4 grown-up children. Just think of that. Oh, we have this lovely little house down in Devonshire. Very peaceful life. Oh, my youngest boy, I've got a snapshot of him somewhere. He's rather a darling, don't you think? He's doing so well in Burma." He scarcely looked at the snapshot. He wasn't interested in her children, her house in Devonshire. "Does your husband know?" about us. Oh, yes, of course, I tell him everything. And she doesn't mind? Why should he? He's hardly likely to bother about something that happened 30 years ago. Oh, he's very interested in you. He reads your notices with me. He's going to be terribly excited when I said I finally have been round to see you. Well, he did not want it to be like this. He wanted a hulking great brute of a husband treating her badly who'd never understood her. He wanted her to be lonely and unloved, leaning out of the window, watching for a star. He could not allow her to be married for 27 years and have 4 grown-up children. She seemed to have taken it all for granted, too. She showed no allowance for his feelings. So much for fidelity. We used to hold each other and whisper words like never and forever. And just a silly string of lies. That's what they were to you. You've killed my last illusions today. You've made me feel like nothing is worthwhile. She shrugged her shoulders and began to draw on the gloves on her large brown hands. You talk as if you never made love to other women, she laughed comfortably. Other women? He waved the idea away. He would not even discuss it. In his mind, though, he saw a meaningless procession to all to whom he'd sworn the same things. The thought irritated him. He found it unattractive. He would have liked men and women to be like birds on a tree. The male bird, dumb and inconsolable on a high branch, with its mate dead at the foot of the tree. The picture saddened him. He felt unhappy for no reason. She was standing now, the ugly hat crammed over her face, the scarf pulled on anyhow round her neck. He caught at her hand. I don't want you to go. She smiled and made her way to the door. I must catch the train at Paddington. John and the children expect me, and it's made me so happy coming here tonight. I shall sit in the train, just going through it all again. It's been a great excitement in my quiet, uneventful life. You don't know how young you've made me feel. He looked at her white hair, her bronzed, weather-beaten face. You're taking something with me, something that belongs with you. You're taking something with you that belongs to me, he finally said. It's something that has no name, but it means a great deal to me. I wish I knew what it was. But this time she laughed and would not believe what he was saying. Now you're just acting, she said. No, that's what you don't understand. She went from him down the passage and out of the stage door. He heard her footsteps pass down the alley outside his window. He looked in the mirror above the fireplace. His face looked thin and pale, and there were little lines beneath his eyes. His hair was streaked with grey. Somebody knocked at the door. It was the girl, neatly dressed and carrying her berry in her hand. Who on earth was that old lady with the white hair and the large bosom? I don't know. As a matter of fact, I haven't the vaguest idea, even now. Oh, did she keep you ages? Poor darling, what a bore for you. He made no answer. She followed him to the car, waiting in the street. When they came to a block in Piccadilly, she looked at him, wondering what he was thinking about. He was singing absent-mindedly to himself, his thoughts miles away. Why are you so mean to me? Why are you... He broke off in the middle of the verse. Tell me, he said suddenly, that woman, did she seem old to you? Really old? So I know I said I was going to play straight into this song, but I did, and I recorded it, and I didn't like it. Didn't do it very well, and I've had to do the whole thing again, and my special guest had gone. So you're getting this as a little PS instead. This is where I was sitting to edit it and had to listen and was like, no, I'll give them a backstage version. So I'm not in all the makeup, and I've not got the martini. I've just got some water. But it does allow me to say something that that I forgot to say and meant to say to you. This song that I'm going to do next and last is my first memory. I can see the video. I can see Kate Bush standing in a spotlight in an amazing dress, being very theatrical, and I loved it and fell completely in love with her and theatre and everything, I guess. Along those of that ilk. My mum, though, says before that, so I was only about 4 when that happened, so apparently when I was about 3, I was watching telly, and apparently I saw Barry Manilow and was struck in the same way and sat there looking at the telly like up really close going, who is that wonderful man? So I'm going to stick with remembering Kate Bush first, personally, but there you go. We're all alone on the stage tonight. We've been told we're not afraid of you. We know our lines oh so well. We've said them so many times, time and time again, line by line again. Oh yeah, you're amazing. We think you're incredible. You say we're fantastic, but still we don't head the bill. Wow, 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 wow. Unbelievable. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, unbelievable. And when the actor reaches his death, you know it's not real. He just holds his breath. But he always dives, oh, too soon, too fast to save himself. He'll never make the screen, never make the Sweeney, kiss that movie queen. He's too busy hitting the Vaseline. Oh yeah, you're amazing. We think you are really cool. We'd give you a part, my lord, but you'd have to play the fool. Wow, 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 wow. Unbelievable. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, unbelievable. We're all alone on the stage tonight.